Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to a very special tournament that started today. It's the so-called FTX Crypto Cup that started today, and it's really one of the best tournaments maybe even in chess history, because for the first time in chess history we have now the best 10 players, top 10 players participating in one tournament. We have, I think, great tournaments before, but never, I think, with the top 10 now of these days. Among them also, of course, the world champion Magnus Carlsen, and also we have some also other 6 players. So it's of course a tournament between the 16 top grandmasters, and the concept is like the usual rapid online concept. We have now 15 rounds of rapid chats, and then of course the 8 best players are moving up to the quarterfinal stage. When we reach the quarterfinal stage, then it's a knockout system. So the special thing also about this tournament, that the prize is also in crypto coin, so it will be also very important, I think, for the future of the world, I think, to organize many of this tournament. So we'll see now what will happen. So far I think it's a great tournament. We had already a great round 1 in which for instance Nepomniachtchi beat Daniil Dubov, and also Magnus Carlsen won the game against Shakir Mamedjarov with the black pieces. Now in the round 2, and in the round 2 we had already the derby of the tournament. It's Magnus Carlsen versus Nepomniachtchi, so this is now the world championship match, but a little bit prearranged. So it's really incredible. I think the whole world is watching this game. We want to see how strong Nepo can play, of course, against Magnus Carlsen. If we want to also see if Magnus Carlsen is still good enough to beat Jan Nepomniachtchi in a fast time format, because we know that Nepo is a great tactician. He loves also this kind of a tempo. He can calculate tactics very easily. So let's check out now the game. This was, I think, so far the game of the tournament. So here Magnus played with the white pieces, opened with the move e4. We have c5 by Nepo, knight to c3, preparing the closed Sicilian with the move f4. Here Nepo goes with the move e6, which is a little bit of a preparation to go into the so-called French variation of the Sicilian. We're trying, of course, e6 d5. That's the main goal. Here Magnus now goes into the normal French Sicilian. We could of course go with the move f4, then we would reach really the the normal position of the closed Sicilian. But after the move knight to f3, Magnus is inviting here Nepo to go into classical system. So here Nepo goes knight to c6. We have now, after the move d4, c takes d4, knight to d4, we have reached the Paulsen variation. And here after the move queen to c7, we have the so-called Basterkov variation. And we have analyzed also recently some games in this Basterkov variation played by top engines. Again, I'm pointing out knight to b5 doesn't bring you so much if you play this move from a white perspective. Queen to b8 will happen, and in one particular moment you lose also new tempo with the knight, because black can play the move a6 and will kick away your knight for sure. So here that's why many times in this continuation you see normal development. Here Magnus plays the natural move bishop to e3. We have now a6 by Nepo. Now he is preventing this knight to b5 idea, also preparing a queenside attack with the move b5. And here in the continuation Magnus goes with the normal ideas, bishop to e2. We have now b5 by Magnus Carlsen, and here Magnus, I think, plays one of the best continuations in this Basterkov variation, because you want to simplify the position. Black has already expanded here on the queen side, but the problem, I think, always for black in these types of structures, in these types of variations, is that you have sort of a lack of development. You see now the knight on f8 is not developed, the knight on g8 is not developed. There are also several weaknesses in the position. The d6 is weak, the e5, also the c5. The dark squares are a little bit weak because you have placed many of your pawns on light squares. The pawn structure is a little bit weird. I'm not really a fan of this French Sicilian setups, although you have the main motif, sort of, as we said, that the d5 motif can be prepared. You can maybe try to push this pawn on d5, but in my opinion it's sometimes a little bit too weak, because the dark square problems you see now in the continuation of the game can be really problematic here for black. After move knight to c6, we have queen to c6, and Magnus exploits now immediately these weaknesses with the move e5. You see now Magnus plays now very tricky line. Of course you cannot take immediately, then you get bishop to f3 and you lose the rook. But even in long terms, here I don't think that you should take out the pawn on g2, even if this tactic wouldn't work. Still bishop to f3, then rook to g1 are opportunities to simply occupy the open then g file. Try also some ideas of queen to d2 and queenside castling, and when we build maybe a queen battery, rook, queen to d2, rook to d1, then I think we can attack further the weakness here. It's as we said, the main weakness in black's position is this weak d6 square. So here in the continuation of the game, bishop to b7 played by Nepo, we have bishop to f3, queen to c7, bishop takes b2, and now after queen to b2, I think Magnus accomplished, I think, a great thing, because he got rid of this very annoying bishop. The bishop on b7 would be, I think, the best minor piece of black. So far a good preparation by Magnus. Here Magnus now goes now queen to d3. Again, he's inviting Nepo to simply take the pawn, but Nepo doesn't want to play that because let's see now what's the possible continuation. After queen to xg2, we can play here queenside castle, and see now still your d7 is weak, and again I'm pointing out the d6 square is a long-term weakness, so I think black would have to retreat simply to c6, and now after the move rook to g1, we can, I think, here from white perspective even prevent black to develop the dark square bishop. The dark square bishop would be further stuck here in this position, so I think white has a comfortable game, although the engine gives here equal chances, but this is rapid chess. I would love always to bleed more white here, because knight to e4, knight to d6, again occupying this long-term weakness is simply a great strategy here for Magnus Carlsen. So after move queen to d3, Nepo goes knight to e7. He wants now to develop further minor pieces. It's of course a natural idea. Now Magnus plays bishop to c5, and now Nepo takes. He delayed this taking idea a little bit, but now he took simply the pawn. Again, nothing dramatically changed in the position. We have reached a similar position. Magnus again simply castles. We have queen to c6, and now Magnus attacks further the weakness, as we said, the weak square on d6. So that's why Nepo protects the square. Knight to f5. Now you see the knight, the bishop, the queen are protecting this weakness, but here Magnus simply continues with bishop to f8, rook to f8, and at least for this pawn, Magnus Carlsen accomplished this idea to never allow now Nepomniachtchi to castle, because even if you castle queenside, I think still that you're vulnerable to some attacks. Again, rook to g1 would be an opportunity. The open g file is again simply too much to handle. Even knight to d6 followed with knight takes d6, queen to d6, again continuing our pressure, or maybe even knight to g5 attacking them this weakness. So I think white has a great flexibility how to attack black's position. So here in the game, rook to e1 played by Magnus, and now after the move rook to c8, here king to b1, getting the king out of this tactical mess, because we want also sometimes to play much more free with the queen, then maybe protect also the c2 pawn. But as I said, it's a natural idea always in the Sicilian, playing queenside castling and then further securing the king by playing king to b1. Now Nepo makes, I think, slight inaccuracy here. He played the move f6, weakens the pawn structure a little bit in front of the king further. A better idea is simply to play rook to h8, then to try to build sort of a blockade with with g6, maybe a rook h5, then h4, simply keep the position compact somehow. Really, it's really necessary to play now a very nice defensive setup. Instead of this move rook to h8, Nepo played the move f6, and here Magnus also doesn't react correctly. The engine, for instance, suggests here simply to take. E takes f6. The problem is now the position gets more and more opened. Here also there are even some tactical threats on the e file, so I think this f6 move is very risky, because Magnus had the opportunity to play e takes f6 and then to open the e file. So as said, Magnus didn't do it. He played now the move f4, and here Nepo played f takes e5. After f takes e5, it's slightly better position here for white, but as we said, Magnus had a great opportunity to play better moves. So here in the game, h6 played by Nepo. We have now rook to g1, attacking simply further the g file, and now comes a huge blunder here by Nepo. Nepo played here the move queen to d5. Queen to d5 is a huge mistake. Rook to f7, you have to protect maybe here your 7th rank and then play much more freely with your knight. I think this could be a good defensive setup, but instead of that, Nepo played here, as we said, a huge blunder, queen to d5. And maybe you can pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for white. It's immediately winning. Okay, it's not maybe winning, but you have decided material that you can win. Okay, here Magnus found this move, of course, immediately. He played the move knight to d6. The problem of this move, it's a double attack, of course, against the knight and also against the rook. The problem is now you cannot take. Knight takes d6 is not a possibility, because you get simply queen to g6 and it comes with a check. The queen is lost, so it's of course a complete winning endgame then for white. So after the move knight to d6, here Nepo had to play king to e7, but now of course knight takes c8, rook takes c8, queen to d5, e takes d5, rook to d5, here king to e6. Now Magnus simply retreats, rook to d3. We have now g5 by Nepo, and now a4. Here Magnus Carlsen wants to split the pawn structure, wants to open the files for the rooks. After move a4, b takes a4, rook to g4, and now rook to c6. Here Magnus simply takes rook to a4, and Nepo tries now to expand simply with the move h5, tries to get something out of this pawn majority on the king side. So after the move h5, here Magnus simply proceeded with the move rook to a3. He's of course trying to take out this pawn. Of course, as we said, Nepo has here the pawn majority, but what you want to do is simply apply the Tarrasch rule. The Tarrasch rule says whenever you face your opponent's pawns, you should go with your rooks behind this pawn. So it means now your whole basic strategy here from White's perspective is to trade off here, then go with the rook behind this pawn, and then to try capture it. And here, let's see now what Magnus did here after the move of g4. So it's a normal idea here by Nepo. King to c1, still a good move here by Magnus Carlsen. You want to of course include your king into the game. Here in the continuation, king to e5. Now rook takes a6, h4 by Nepo, rook takes c6, and now after d takes c6, king to d1. Still okay, it's playable here, but after the move now h3, here Magnus Carlsen played now huge blunder. He played the move king to e2. King to e2 is not the best of moves, as we said. Rook to a8, you have to simply play the so-called Tarrasch rule. You have to get behind your enemy's pawns. Now after move maybe knight to d4, that could be a possibility. We can simply go behind, or if you try maybe to push the pawn on g3, we can simply take h takes g3. If you take knight takes g3, the king is simply too far away from the action. Now rook to h8 is of course winning the game. This pawn will be lost, and then with this pawn majority on the queen side, White is of course simply winning this position. But Magnus played now king to e2, and it gives now Nepo the opportunity to play the move g3, because if you play h takes g3, great move here by Nepo, then you get simply h2. You have to bring your rook to the first rank, and now a simple promotion is making a draw here for Nepo. After move queen to h1, the promotion here, rook to h1, knight to g3, you get the fork. Here king to f3, and now okay, Magnus could here take away the knight, but here it's a theoretical draw for both sides. So as said, after move g3, Magnus had to play now the move king to f3. Nepo simply takes, rook to a1 had to be played, and now a very nice move here by Nepo, knight to d4, king to g3 takes, here attacks, and then Magnus has here the opportunity to take out both of the pawns. But the problem is now here that Nepo can build with this very nice blockade here in the continuation after c4, b takes c4, knight to c4, and here we have reached a theoretical drawish position. You cannot win a rook versus knight endgame here. After rook takes c4, king to c4, of course it was a draw. So incredible stuff, but I'm sure that Magnus is still not unsatisfied with this game. He played a decent game with this pawn sacrifice idea on g2, missed really simple tactic in the end, no problem here. Nepo also can be, I think, satisfied with this game. I think the chess world can be also satisfied with this draw. Still, both players are playing a very good tournament, as we said in the beginning. In the first round, both of them won the game. So after the two rounds, both of them have won half points. So I think it's a fair draw. Nepo saw a great endgame tactic. Magnus Carlsen saw a great middlegame tactic. So I think, as I said, it's a fair draw. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting game. We'll see now who win this tournament. Nepo is of course the challenger against Magnus Carlsen. Wish him also all of the best, but we still have players like Alireza Firouzja, Daniil Dubov is here, Anish Giri, so I don't want to of course miss someone. Of course Wesley So, Wesley So is always my favorite when it comes to this rapid online tournaments. You know how great Wesley plays this tournament, so it will be a great tournament. Be prepared. Now we're covering today some more games. I hope you enjoy also my coverage, and I think it will have maybe even the event of 2021. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other content on my YouTube chess channel, maybe hear the best chess games of all times with some great chess games from the past, and you can also check out my commented chess games played by computers with some Alpha Zero, Lila Zero, Stockfish 13, and some other great chess engine games. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.